Namaskar. I am Shubhra Sinha, your course instructor, and we are going to learn lecture 5 of the 5th module of stress management course. Till now, we have learned about several occupational stresses and the consequences they can create for the employees as well as for the organization. And now this is the time to learn to intervene in this situation, to learn various strategies that can be adopted to manage the occupational stress successfully at the level of the individuals as well as at the level of the organization as a whole. So, let us begin our journey and know more about the stress management process in organization. Basically, management of occupational stress is a 3-step process. At the beginning, we need to identify the problem. If we fail to identify the problem, we can never be able to solve it successfully. So, identification of problem is the first thing we are supposed to do. Then we have to design an effective intervention program to sort the problem out. And finally, we have to assess the effectiveness of the intervention program periodically, which is known as evaluation of intervention. So, the 3 steps are identification of the problem. Here you can find this is the first step, then intervention in the situation, and finally to evaluate how successful we have become in solving that problem by employing a particular kind of intervention technique. Let us ponder more over the process of problem identification. Whenever we suspect a stress problem in an organization, we need to define a method, we need to identify the ways in which we can know more about the problem, because knowing appropriately and accurately about the problem is the only thing which can help us in the beginning. So, what do? We think of several methods of identifying the problem. How can we do so? We can do it by conducting group discussions among managers. So, first of all, we have to understand that we cannot talk to everybody simultaneously. Organizations usually have big workforce which is also classified in different hierarchies. So, what we are supposed to do? We are supposed to talk to people who are working at different levels of that organizations, understand their perspective, understand their viewpoint about the problem, and then moving ahead and addressing a fresh group of employees. So, what can we do? We can create group discussions among whom? We can call the group of managers separately, then we can call the labor representatives, basically the representatives of the labor class who actually do the physical jobs of the factories or organization or offices. Then the employees or the intermediate level workers which come in between the laborers and the managers. When we talk to them, when we create a situation of group discussion for different groups, what happens that while discussing with each other, they reveal many important points about the problem, or sometimes even if they are not capable of identifying the problem initially, in the process of discussion they get to know more about them. They start sharing their views, they start sharing their opinions, and they get to know what is actually happening at the backside. Plus, this provides valuable information to the organization and the top level management who is doing this exercise in order to identify the problem. What can happen? That in small companies we can have one-to-one interaction, we can call them all personally in a meeting room, sit with them, let them talk to each other, let them talk to you as a top level management, and during the personal discussions and face to face interactions, we gain insight into the problem. But for large organization, this method can be very tedious. Some companies or organizations are really big. For example, if Jio wants to do the same thing, the Reliance Industries wants to do the same thing, for them it will not be possible to call upon all the managers, all the workers or all the laborers personally into one seminar hall and then let them have a discussion with each other. So, what do? They have to look for more structured ways of gaining information. So, what they do? They design formal surveys. Survey is a set of questions which is printed in a booklet and which is circulated to employees. Every employee get to fill that survey form, which is then collected back and analyzed by the data analysis unit of that company or organization, and the conclusions drawn are then communicated to the head of the organization or whosoever is responsible for resolving such problems. Okay. So, this is a more feasible way to adopt in large organization with thousands of employees working in it. Okay. Then what kind of data do we ask for? We have to design a survey or we have to conduct a group discussion. What should be the points which we should cover in this group discussion, or we should put questions in the survey on what topics? So, there may be topics like perception of job conditions. Are you satisfied with the conditions in which you are working? The infrastructure is good, the furnitures are comfortable, the equipments which you are working with are in good shape, they are up to date, they carry up state of the art technology or not. Then what kind of stress levels do they find in their daily routines? Whether the job is very stressful means they are very hard pressed, loads and loads of work is there, they are supposed to perform everything within very less time. For example, if you talk about the delivery services like Zomato, Swiggy, Blinkit and many others which are running nowadays, they sometimes claim to have 10 minutes delivery. Now, you can imagine that how this condition builds up stress over the employee who is supposed to receive the order, get the grocery and then deliver it, and everything is to be done within 10 minutes. If the time exceeds, the employee has a threat of getting fined. You must have heard many incidences regarding that 30 minutes pizza delivery. If the pizza is delivered after 30 minutes or it is cold, not very hot, you will get it free. So, for customer this is something very good, I will get it free, I can again heat it in my microwave oven, but just think about the mental condition of the delivery agent. How much pressurized the person would feel. What will happen? The cost of that pizza will be cut from his meager salary, which is not very much, and again there will be cuts and cuts and cuts if he fails to perform the duty within the stipulated time. So, sometimes the job conditions can be very stressful. You can also ask about the health conditions of an employee, what kind of health problems they are suffering from, or you can also ask about the facilities to support their health related expenses. Do the company provide health insurance to them? Whether there are policies which support free treatment for the employees in certain designated hospitals or medical units or not. Then we can also ask about their satisfaction level while working in that particular unit working in that particular organization. So, they will tell you about how much satisfied do they feel, very satisfied, less satisfied, not satisfied at all, whatever. Apart from that, you can also fetch objective data from the data cell of an organization. Now, what kind of data can we fetch? We can get data about absenteeism of employees. How many employees are absent on daily basis, whether they are employees who are taking much more leave as compared to others due to one reason or the other, you know. Then we can also have an insight about the turnover rates, means annually how many employees leave this institution, this organization and move to some other organization. This is also a very vital data to tell you about the level of satisfaction which the employees feel. If the employees feel satisfied, they are not going to move away from the organization, but if they do not feel satisfied, they will have a tendency to change the institution frequently. Okay. So, all these things can be a potential indicator of the job related stress of an employee, and also they can serve as a warning signs which make the management alert and awakened to take certain corrective measures about it. We have already discussed about group satisfaction and employee surveys. What else can we do? We can go for perception measurements. We can prepare scales where there will be items and they will be accompanied by a 5-point scale, a 10-point scale to assess the performance of the organization, its climate, its work culture, its policies, the managerial styles and many things like that. So, finally, all the data which has been collected in this way is analyzed in a particular data analysis wing which is there in every big organization, and it is known as research and development section of the company or organization popularly. So, all the data which has been collected so far is analyzed there, and then we can come to certain conclusion. Once we are successful in identifying the problem and the causes of the problems, we have come through the problem itself, and then we have collected enough data to find the reason of that problem, why such problems are emerging off and on. We can now think of designing an intervention program that can be implemented for effective resolution of such stressors. Okay. So, we have first identified the sources, and also we have measured the extent of the problem, how serious the problem is or how pervasive the problem is. Seriousness means the problem can be limited to a particular section of employees. Few or some of the employees are involved who are suffering from this problem, but the intensity or the magnitude of the problem is very high. It is really impairing the performance of the group or unit, or the problem or the stress generated can be of moderate level, but it is very pervasive. That means most of the employees are now suffering from this stress. So, what we can do? Now, this kind of interventions can include company wide changes at the highest level. Policies of the company can be changed. For example, Government of India introduced the concept of maternity leave in order to reduce the stress of mothers of young children, and gradually they are increasing the duration of this maternity leave. Initially it used to be 3 months, then it was increased and it became 6 months, almost 180 days, and they have plans to review it as well. Maybe the duration can be increased further. Then they came to know that even after maternity leave the things are not sorted because the children are very young, they are very delicate, they suffer from health issues, they suffer from other kind of problems. So, the government came to a policy reform and they allowed to have child care leave to its employees. This is like the highest level change where the top level management is involved and it is changing the policy so that it becomes more employee friendly and can reduce the stress level significantly. So, company wide changes, organizational level changes, government induced changes, whatever you call it. So, changes can be there at the highest level on one hand, and on the other hand it can go deep down and reach the level of the individuals themselves. Okay. So, individualized resolutions can be there, solutions can be presented which are customized to tailor the requirement of the impacted group, the group of employees who are suffering from high level of stress. For them we can carefully craft a particular solution that can be offered to them which reduces the stress level as well as which increases the productivity of the organizations. Okay. Some interventions are easier to put into action, so they can be implemented immediately, whereas other solutions can take more time to be implemented, where a lot of arrangements are required at the level of infrastructure, at the level of policy changes. A lot of discussion is required, a lot of far-sightedness is required to assess the impact of such changes in the long run. So, this presents the process of designing and implementing intervention program diagrammatically. So, we have identified the stress resources at the very first step, then we propose and prioritize the strategies, the second step. Okay, if I can give numbers to these steps, this is the second step where we are going to decide our priorities and we will work accordingly. Once we have designed an intervention program, we duly communicate it to our employees. Okay. So, this is going to be the third step. So, the employees who are going to get affected from this intervention program must know in advance what kind of changes they can expect, what demands of theirs have been addressed and what are still pending. Okay. And finally, we need to implement the intervention program on the ground root level, just as we have done in case of the new education policy 2020. The government of India, the education ministry conducted a big movement to gather ideas, suggestions from all the stakeholders who are associated with the process of education, may it be school education or university education or professional education, may they be parents or students or teachers or administrators. Everybody was involved. There was a platform where everyone was writing, sending mails, discussing, sharing their ideas. What happened when the whole data was analyzed and conclusions were drawn by the ministry? There were certain points, there were certain priorities, certain issues which they find very important and which needs to be addressed immediately. So, they prepared a draft and then they communicated it to the stakeholders for further discussion, and finally, the implementation started. Every university, every college, every school was told what kind of changes they are supposed to do, what kind of infrastructure do they require, what kind of changes will be there in their curriculum as well as in the evaluation process. So, implementation of intervention is also there. Now, let us think of the situation where we have designed an intervention, we have implemented it on the field. But once implemented, we assume that because we have designed it after such a thorough exercise, it is going to fetch wonderful results for us. This may not be true all the time. We may have committed some mistakes, which are limiting the effectiveness of the intervention program, which are keeping the intervention programs attaining their final goals successfully. In order to identify and then rectify such factors, we need periodic evaluation of our intervention programs. So, once we implement them, we have to keep an eye over them, what kind of difficulties are coming in the successful implementation and what is happening after implementation. If I implemented certain policy for say 3 months or 6 months or for an year or 2, what happens after that? Do I get the desired change for which the intervention program was designed, or the situations are just the same, or my intervention program has actually worsened the situation. The changes are there but in reverse direction, which was not desirable. What kind of things are actually happening at the ground? This must be assessed periodically and honestly. If we do this exercise, then only we will be able to refine our intervention strategies to make them more effective. If we are not ready to do this kind of evaluation, we will be completely unaware of the ground effect of our intervention program and the kind of changes it is bringing in the life of employees as well as in the overall organizational setup. So, how can we evaluate the intervention program? While evaluating the intervention program, we can think of performance assessment. If the intervention is successful, the performance of the employees should go up. The overall productivity should go high, both in terms of quality as well as quantity. So, the number of units produced or the number of services rendered must increase, as well as the quality of those products or services must also increase. So, this can be one indicator of judging the success of our intervention program. Then we can again have a measurement of employees' perception. You might remember we had a lot of assessment regarding employees' perception of the existing resources and the satisfaction and the job policies and everything. And once we implement the program, after it runs for a satisfactory duration, we must repeat those evaluations again to see the changes, whether it is capable of bringing about certain changes in the employee's perception, whether they feel a positive change now as compared to what they used to feel earlier. We can collect employees' feedback on job conditions. We can also have objective and quantifiable data measures for evaluation of intervention programs, and then on the basis of that we can adjust the strategies which we are using to manage occupational stress. Again, if we find some problems in the intervention program, we can go back to step 1, that is probing more about the problem. If I find that I had enough discussions and then I tried to draw certain conclusions and I designed the intervention program and implemented it successfully, but still I am not able to get the desired result, I must again start thinking in the very same way why this particular program does not resulted in the desired change. So, it is a cyclic process where we can move from one step to the other, then to the next one, then to the next one, and finally arrives at the first step if required. Now, let us have some important aspects or discussion about the intervention program itself. When I was discussing about this issue, I told you that intervention programs can be large enough, which can be introduced at the level of the organization, at the level of the government, and there can be a micro level management also. this micro level management reaches to the level of individual employees and tries to offer them individually crafted interventions, individually tailored packages which can bridge the gap between their abilities and expectation and between the job demands, between what the job requires. So, changing the work culture, changing the policies or changing the employees. This is the two-way approach we adopt while making an intervention program. So, if we try to see that how it is organized, we must keep some points into consideration. Whenever we design intervention program and decide whether this intervention is going to be organizational level or it is to be confined at individual level, we have to take care of the cost effectiveness of the program. And also we may be aware of the long term effectiveness of the program. Okay. We must not prepare programs which offer quick results but they vanishes quickly also. Means if I introduce the intervention today, you can find changes after 10 days, but as soon as the intervention program is over, everything is back to original. Such kind of programs have no meaning. If some sort of intervention has been done, the impact of intervention should be long lasting. So, we have to assess two things before we decide we are going for individual level intervention or the organizational level intervention. One is the cost effectiveness, of course, what is the cost involved, what is the resource, what are the resources required to do such interventions, and the second is how impactful this program is going to be, how long its impact will continue in the organization over the employees. Okay. So, usually if you think in terms of organizational level changes, what can be done? We can improve the working conditions, we can provide the employees with better working condition. If the environment or the weather is too hot, maybe putting an air conditioner in the working area can give little relief to the employees and they can focus more on their work, right. At the same time, there can be other type of management programs that can be adopted. For example, at individual level changes, we can focus on self care practices of the employees, how aware they are about their physical and mental health. We all know that body is the medium through which we work. If we do not take care of our physical health, we will not be able to work successfully. So, health related practices must be introduced, like exercising regularly, taking healthy diet and making a proper relaxation schedule intermittently with the work schedule. Similarly, time management skills must be extended to the employees, they must be given to the employees and they must be taught how to prioritize their task, how to break their task into smaller segments and how to complete them successfully one after the other. And then we can also encourage them to seek support from their colleagues and professional if they require to manage their stress. Moreover, we can give them training for developing successful coping mechanisms, okay, engaging in hobbies, spending times with their loved ones or practicing mindfulness. All these things can improve upon the stress effectively. We can also tell them how to set boundaries between work and personal life. If they work for 8 to 9 hours daily and they are back home, they can be asked not to think about their work while being in the family, while being with the family. When they are working, it is only the work time. They must not think about their family issues at that time, and when they are with their family, they must dedicate all their time to the family only. Similarly, at organizational levels, we can come up with clear communications, workload management, empowerment of the employees by providing autonomy to them and by ensuring their participation in the decision making process, and also by offering programs and mentoring for the employees who need them. We can also equip employees with upgradation training where they can learn new techniques to handle their work as well as to manage their stress. Work life balance training can also be given to them. Recognition and reward system must be improved so that employees should not feel their effort is not being acknowledged by the management. Moreover, we should also create a more positive workplace culture, fostering an environment of respect, trust and collaboration instead of getting into unnecessary competition all the time. So, finally, it is important to match the workload of the workers with their capacities, to design jobs in such a way so that they are engaging and allow workers to use their abilities and skills, which clearly define the roles and responsibilities of an employee and giving them fair share in decision making process. Improvising communication about career development and job security is of immense importance, and equally important is to encourage the social interactions among the workers. Establishing work schedules that accommodate their outside demands or family requirement is also a very good practice that can be adopted by an organization to reduce occupational stress. This was all about managing occupational stress. Let us have a quick recap. So, in this lecture, we learned that occupational stress management is a three-step process which proceeds from the identification of the problem to designing intervention and implementing it successfully on the ground, and finally evaluating the success and efficiency of the intervention program. If needed, the organization can refine the intervention program further to make it more relevant and appropriate for the requirement of the employees as well as the organization. This intervention can be done at the macro level, means the changes can be brought in at the organizational level, at the level of organizational climate, organizational policies, or there can be micro level changes where customized intervention programs can be offered to the employees who need them. However, whatever intervention program you make, the way you implement it, it is of utmost importance to periodically assess its effectiveness. So, evaluation must be a continuous process. The evaluation must be fair and free from all kind of biases, and the organization must be open to make revisions and refinements in the intervention program if it is really targeting the stress reduction as a final aim. Here are the references for further reading. Some more books are given here that you can study. Here are some more. You can choose according to your choice and availability. That is why I give you options, as you can read as per the availability of the books and your own interest and ease. Thank you very much for your patient listening.